Hello, hello. I am Marzell Van Vlanderen, and I work for the Woodcraft Spokane, and I've had a lot of questions since I'm a Finnish woman and restorer. I've had a lot of questions about ODIE'S oil. And there's not one thing I can say, good or bad, because I've not used the product. So I thought today we would just do it together and see how it goes. This particular ODIE'S product, there's several of them, and this particular one is for wet wood. Wet wood is what we consider wood that has its own natural oils that stays a little bit wet. So you don't want to put just a regular finish on it. So ODIE'S has come up with this product that is compatible to the wet wood. We're using olive oil. I've spent a week or so repairing this cool looking horse. Someone did a fabulous job carving it. It fell, broke in several different pieces. And so now I'm going to put a finish on it so it will not crack and break. Sorry about that. I looked up on the website. Every jar has a website on it, and it was just ODIE'S, www.odies.com, and I kind of am going to follow direction of what they tell me to do. So basically the first thing was to stir the can. I wouldn't think, and I don't know that I'd have thought you'd have had to do that, because it's pretty uniform. As you can see, it's very much like almost a beeswax, but a little bit more oily than that. So once it's thoroughly mixed, they recommend that you use these Scotch-Brite pads and the gray one to put it on. One thing that they do say about application is that you put it on in a swirl, which I very much agree with. In my world of finishing, everything goes on in a swirly motion. That way you get every pore filled with the product and not just over the top. Wood, along with everything else that is in the natural state, has a lot of pores. So you very much have to work your way into the pore. They said not to overly use the product. This jar will go about 400 square feet. So it's one of those things where you're just going to have to work it in, put it on, and just spread it out. And it seems to be spreading okay. There's a spot there. Don't want to worry about with the grain. It's an absorbing product, so it will absorb into the wood. And you're not even going to be able to tell a difference whether or not you're going with the grain or against the grain as far as the finish is going to go. And so far it seems to be moving around pretty good. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of problems with working it in. If I leave it alone, it's soaking into the wood, which is exactly what we want. I'm going to release this clamp just because I spent too long gluing it all back together. I didn't want it to fall. The one thing I've noticed so far is it doesn't even really feel that oily on my hand. And you'll notice that I don't have a glove, or a respirator for that matter, which in my world I always have both. So that's kind of nice not to have to move a glove around while I'm using my hands. They say that it is all natural and you don't have to use personal protection for any of the applications or any of the products, which again is very nice. The least things that we have to buy, the better. with this having a lot of detail to it, it's just going to take a little bit of time to work it in. And like they were saying, put it on and then let it soak in. And that's what gives it its finish. I'm not really putting a whole lot on my Scotch-Brite pad because I'm just trying to see how far I can spread it before I actually think that I have to get some more. And it seems like it's going on really well. It's going into the pores. Olive wood has a lot of open pores. So sometimes it's very difficult to get the product inside all of the pores so it doesn't look blotchy. It seems to be working all right. I know that in places where it was broke, I spent a little bit of time coloring to make sure that, we could hide the repairs, which sometimes you can do, sometimes you can't. But you always just put it together the best you can and then you move on. And if you have any touch-ups that you want to do later on, these colored pencils work really well. We don't carry them here. I'm going to work on that. But in your local art store, if you just get the natural colors, they do pretty good. The browns and the tans, sometimes the orange and the yellows. But that's where I get mine. It would be nice if someone would come up with a product that actually was the color of walnut or something that you're using. But most of the time they don't. So that's where the artistic value comes in. And you do the best you can with what you have. So that's what I do. A lot of people think that if it's broke, it needs replaced. And 9 out of 10 times, or in my world, 10 out of 10 times, anything can be fixed. It's just a matter of how you do it to where it's going to take and give you back the structural value and look good at the same time. So once you figure out how to do that, then anything can be fixed. And with that, anything can be finished to look nice. So far I'm not at all disappointed with the way this is spreading out. One thing that they do recommend is that you get it on and then you just let it sit and dry for an hour, which we'll definitely do that. Won't make you watch it dry for an hour, but we'll do that. A little bit impressed. I'm not a big fan of wax. As a refinisher, wax is very hard to get out of wood, 100% out of wood. And nothing adheres to wax except for wax. So when you spend the time to strip something and there's still wax in there, you just got to take a little bit more time sanding and working with the product. I have a dog. She's everywhere. Something else I was impressed with is it's food safe. And they say that on every jar. That's one of their claim to fame is it's food safe. And not every product can say that. This is an all-natural product. No man-created chemicals. That's why we're not having to use any personal protection, like a respirator or gloves. or ventilation. I don't even have the ventilation on. And I can't smell it. It actually is pretty low in odor, which is impressive. So that tells me that you could do this in your house. You don't necessarily have to have a shop or a separate building or a garage to apply it. You can do it right in your house. Just like any finish, you're going to want 70 degrees. The best optimal temperature for any kind of finish. They recommend, ODIE'S recommends 70 degrees. Which if you don't have 70 degrees, you'll know right away why they say 70 degrees. Because it won't dry. So you're going to be sitting there for days on end waiting for the temperature to come up so it'll dry. And we definitely don't want to do that. That's a waste of time. So with this particular product, you can actually do it in the house. And it's not going to hurt one little bit. I almost feel like I'm cleaning out the guy's nose. And I knew this would be a little bit of a challenge with the mane because it's all hand carved. I don't know if you can see it. So I just happen to have this little brush that I brought just to make it a little bit easier to get it into the hand carved areas that the Scotch-Brite won't get all the way in the grooves. And they say that it will eventually, by waiting for it to dry, the oils will eventually find their way into the grooves. I'm not a very patient person, so I don't want to go back and redo it. So I'm going to make sure it gets in the groove. And that's what the brush is all about. And still being careful to get it spread around without building it up. Inside the ear, behind the ear, clean behind the ear. Did your mama always tell you that? Your ears aren't clean. That's all right. It still seems to be awfully pliable. It's not hardening up very fast, so that's good. It gives you absolutely time to work it in and get everything covered. Sometimes you get waxes that start to dry way faster than you can put it on, and they tend to hinder a little bit more than they help. And this seems to be spreading quite well. The brush is taking it well. You know, it always helps to have beautiful wood to start with. But with a beautiful finish, you can make any wood beautiful. Which a lot of people, you got to just take the time. A lot of people don't want to give the finish the time. And that's, you know, that's your bling. That's where people see first. They don't see your build. They don't see your joinery. They don't see how well you did it. They see that finish. And if the finish isn't beautiful, then the rest of it isn't going to be beautiful. It's kind of just like a car. First thing you see is the paint job. And the first judgment that you make is on the paint job. And that's no different than any wood finish that you're going to put. You spend all that time and effort learning how to do it and doing it well. Your craftsmanship should complement your finish, and your finish should complement your craftsmanship. They go hand in hand. And like I've always said, if you're not good at something, find somebody that is good at it. Because it is definitely worth the finished product when you spend the time on a beautiful finish. This is a one-step finish. Okay, kind of a one-step finish. With olive wood being so wet, I don't want to put too much on. I just want to protect it. So I'm only going to go, hopefully, just going to go one coat. And then allow its natural oils to maintain itself for a long time. I can't tell you how old this horse is. I can tell you, though, that the craftsmanship of the carving is excellent. It's greatly admired. In my job, I get to see some beautiful craftsmanship, and it's definitely worth my time just to look at the craftsmanship. So this horse has a buddy, I've been told. Kind of its not quite twin. They're carved a little bit different, but not much. Curious if she's happy. I might see the twin, and we might be doing this again, just so they both are looking the same and on the same plane. You see me dipping a lot because I've got very little on my brush. And I'm trying to just move it around into all the grooves before I start contending with, oh no, I have too much. And I know right now you're just seeing the back, and I'm doing all the work back here. In just a minute, we'll flip her around and start working on the front of it a little bit. Almost right there. I really like how it just automatically changes the color of the wood, so you know right now that you've hit an area, that you've got it all. A lot of water-based finishes, they don't change the color very well, so they don't enrich it. It's not really changing the color, it's enriching it. So it's really difficult to say, oh, I got it all, because it still really kind of looks the same as it did before you started. With this oil, ODIE'S oil, it just instantly changes the color. You can tell when it's soaking into the wood, which is nice. I like that. Olive wood is very marbly, so sometimes it's really difficult to tell if you've hit that area or not. And I don't seem to have that problem right now. So now I'm just going to go through and make sure that I've got all of these nicely carved, detailed areas cleaned up. Not really worried about any contamination yet because everything's still really wet, so I can pull off anything that I see. And if not, with a wax finish, with an oil wax finish, you can always get that later on when you're buffing it out. There will be a buff out. There will be a wipe off. But what we're going to do is let it sit for about an hour and let it soak in and dry. They say to let it dry. And once it's dry, then we can go in and wipe off any excess and buff it out. And that should be it. Then we should be done. It always makes me nervous to roll this thing. I don't want to break it again. Freebie repairs don't get you anywhere. Okay, I think I pretty much got it on there now, pretty thoroughly. So I'm just going to go around it and I'm just going to run the grain. Just because I'm anal and I like to run the grain. I like it to be with the grain. Now that we've got it absorbed in, or got it thoroughly on, applied, better word. I can just kind of do a little touchy touch. Make sure I don't have any areas that are built up real heavily. This is the heavier the product, the longer it's going to take to dry. And like I say, we don't want to spend more than a day doing this, so we follow the directions. I'm not real great at, but we're doing it. Okay, so we've applied. Now we're just going to let it sit for an hour, probably go to lunch, and then come back and work on it again. We'll see you then. Okay, so we're back. It's been an hour. I've had some lunch, feeling good. And so now it's time to wipe off and buff. It's recommended that if you wipe it with your finger and see a wipe mark, it's not quite dry yet, so you have to wait a little bit longer. Fortunately, I don't see one, so we're going to move on. It's recommended that we use a towel for bathroom towel, and I just kind of cut it up and made it a little bit smaller because I've got a lot of detail to work with here. So basically, it's just with the grain, and you're to wipe it off and buff at the same time if you have anything left over. So my experience of waxing and buffing is you kind of got to give a little bit of OODA, push down harder than you normally would. You're actually trying to buff a sheen into it, so you kind of got to give it a little bit of elbow work. And there are times it's not a flat table where you are going to have to go against the grain. And that seems to be working okay. My number one thing to look for when I'm buffing is to feel it. And if it doesn't start to feel smooth and slippery, it's not buffing, which means it's not dry. And this is doing exactly what they said it would. It's actually buffing out really nicely. So far, so good. When I first decided to try this product with this particular job, I wasn't quite certain what I was going to use as far as a finish. I just wanted to give it some moisture to bring out its natural color. But with olive wood, it has a lot of moisture to it. But with time, its surface dries. And what that means is it just looks dry. The inside isn't, but the outside just looks dry. It's being exposed to the elements and whatnot. So I think it'd work a little bit better if I took the clamp off and laid it down a bit. Able to get all of the parts. It's definitely getting slippery. I like that. So that means it's working. And I'm starting to see a good shine come through. But you definitely got to use the elbow grease. I'm awfully impressed with whoever carved this horse. They did a fabulous job. There's a lot of detail in the mane and the eyes and the mouth and the ears. Everywhere the detail should be, it's there. Which, I may not be able to carve like this, but I can definitely appreciate the craftsmanship. And in my world, craftsmanship is everything. Antiques are really well built, or they wouldn't still be here today. So it's nice to be able to look at one man's craftsmanship or one woman's craftsmanship and know that you fixed it and it was going to last a whole bunch longer. It's very gratifying. That, and I like horses too, so I guess that helps. Yeah, so far I'm pretty happy with the way this is turning out. It's just, feels good, looks good. Didn't change its color, it just enhanced it, enriched it. Brought out the natural colors of the wood, which again, it's olive wood. I don't know that anybody, unless they really looked hard, will be able to see the repairs, so that's kind of how I gauge whether or not it's a good repair, structure, and how it looks. Get a little bit in this mouth here. I'm going to pick its nose. I think it's got a little ickies in it. Right down to cleaning his teeth. Oh yeah. There's a good shine on the inside of the mouth. I don't think you'll be able to see it, but boy, it sure looks good, shiny. Now, if you want to go shinier, if you want your sheen to be, very glossy, then you would just go another coat if you felt that you needed to. I'm not going to. I like it just the way it is right here. I'm just going to leave it with one coat. And they say that one coat will do the job. And I'm not disputing that. The way that it's gone on, I'm kind of impressed. It's buffing out really easy. Oh, it sure feels good. And that's half the battle. Just because something looks good, if it doesn't feel good, it's not good yet. Okay, as I'm handling this, I'm taking note of how slippery it is, which it's not bad. It doesn't feel like it wants to fall out of my hands by any means, and that's always good. I'm not seeing any blotchy areas where it took better than it did anywhere else, and that too is good. I'm not seeing a shiny spot shinier than anything else, which means that it buffed out consistently. So I can't complain about that. What do you think, Joel? I love it. Okay, so there we go. A little bit of demonstration with some ODIE'S. And I got to tell you, I think I like it. I think you will too. And I'm not a big fan of wax and oil, so I recommend you use it. Absolutely. Thank you much.